I need my wits about me. Let's have some water. Okay, so we've got a moving blanket down here protecting the sprocket. And these 4 bolts are not going to be a T30. They're going to be a T40. So you're going to need a T40 Torx bit for these. There are 4 of them. You know, fair warning, if you are doing this for the first time on your own, these bolts, oh, they were not going to go anywhere, I'll tell you that. Okay, so as I said, I'm going to try to keep these in their respective spots. So these 2 bolts go there. These 2 bolts go down here. So we're going to keep track of those and observe our caliper. So we can see on the back side, give that a rub. So this area, we can see or kind of feel that these are flat on this end. Versus on the end that was up, we have the indentations as well as the markings of what the caliper was. And as you can see now in the light, you can see like all these little grooves from the right angle, looking at it, holding it in my hand. Oh my, on the back side, you can really see where the bare metal was making contact. So out with the old, in with the new. But before I put this on, I'm going to go ahead, wipe down my hands and give these a good spray with some brake cleaner. All right, so if you've never worked on brakes before, I don't know if it's an urban myth or not, but you know, they say that they pack brake pads in with a lot of chemicals to make sure that things don't corrode in transit. I don't know how true all of that is, but I always spray everything down with a good bout of brake cleaner. And then I grab a clean towel and just kind of rub everything down a little bit. All right, and one trip to the store later, we are ready to reapply the thread locker. Let's grab just a bit of blue thread lock. That's too much. It still might be a bit much, but here we go. One goes in here. One goes in here. And as it turns out, despite my difficulties getting this off, excuse the dogs barking, this is only torqued down to 22 Newton meters. So I've got my torque wrench off to the side, just my 1/4 inch for this job. I don't need the full 1/2 inch torque wrench for this. And I'm just kind of doing a star pattern. I don't believe it's super critical that you tighten it down in a star pattern, but it makes me feel better about it. There's one. There's 2. 3. And 4. Done. Now, let's take a look at the brake pads. So the brake pads, if I'm not mistaken, is actually held in by a bolt or a pin. It looks like one or both of these 2 pins right here. Those look like they are maybe 5 millimeters or so. Rest that on my boot. And I was right, 5 millimeter. So we're just gonna crack these open. I believe I'll do the bottom one. Wow, okay. Maybe I should have done this while the caliper was still held in place. Okay, got the top bolt at least. Unclear if I have to do both. Doesn't look like it, but I'll go ahead and do both. So now that these are unscrewed, I'm not going to pull them out all the way, or I guess I will. Was not intending to pull them out all the way. But you pull the pins out far enough, and your brake pads come out, and you can see I waited entirely too long. These brake pads no longer exist, really. So that is troubling. Oh, the brake pads and brake discs and caliper, they live a hard life as it is. So, giving them a good cleaning. Okay, that almost looked cracked, how badly it's, like, it had brake dust on it. Alright, all that's left now is to compress these pistons a little bit using a C-clamp and one of these old pads. And if you've never seen this process done before, it's basically you just take a C-clamp in your old brake pad, line it up, and just kind of twist it slowly, trying to get this as straight as possible. And you're just using the pressure to compress these brake discs back inward to get space for your new pads. Because you figure these pads, or these pistons, assuming they are not damaged, should be adjusting as you ride the more the brakes wear. That's most modern bikes, not just the Triumph. New brake pads are going to have all that extra thickness to them, meaning you're not going to have them fit unless you do that. So let's go ahead and grab the new brake discs and cut them open. So there we go, brand new brake discs, and let's go ahead and do a before and after so you can see exactly how bad I was. That's despicable. Now then, in theory, these pads should only fit one direction. Let's make sure that this pad gets in there nice and secure. Okay. And does the pin come through? Almost. Let's push down. Okay. Bottom pin is in. Okay. Push down just a little. There we go. So both pins are coming through this pad. Let's go ahead and duplicate that with the outer pad. So we're going to loop this around this little rod. Now I'm just going to force this down, pushing it down, and slipping the pins the rest of the way through. And good, those are not going anywhere. So now all that's left is to re-tighten these two pins on this side. Once I locate, here it is. Now, an important thing to note, on the other side, let's see, this cover on the other side is where the rear brake reservoir is going to be. Before I started, I actually took a turkey baster and drained some of the fluid and left the cap over there off, so that way you could, when you push those pistons back in, you don't get fluid spilling all over the place in there. So an important note to make there. I don't recall the torque specs for these two bolts. Let me go ahead and check. Brake hose, brake pad retaining bolts are set at 18 Newton meters. So let's grab the small torque wrench. Get my knee into position and brace it. There we go. Those certainly don't feel like they're going to go anywhere now. Good. Good. All right. So, rear caliper is done, ready to be reinstalled. Okay. Actually, that has enough slack that it's not going to touch the ground. So, let me double check, make sure I've got everything. We have, this guy, which is for the rear axle. If I'm not mistaken, that goes right about in there, facing outward. I'm going to keep that like that. And then on the other side, this one is still in place. Good. And we are ready to reinstall our wheel. Angle this just right. Okay. The wheel is now in place for the most part. Good. Now then, this bracket right here goes, I believe, facing this direction, because you can see this cutout is meant to go right over here. So it's going to go here, Triumph facing out, And we're going to kind of slide this forward. Kind of mount it right on top of that. And the rear axle is going to go through this hole, through this mounting bracket. I'll have to lift this tire up high enough to get the axle through. So this is going to be fun. We're going to have fun. This is fun. I'm having fun. Everyone's having fun. Are you having fun? Because I'm having fun. There we go. That was the problem. There we go. Hey. All right, I'm just gonna grab the bolt and washer, see if I can't put it in place before I forget. So washer, bolt. I'm just gonna hand thread that for now, just so I know the axle cannot slip out. Beautiful. I'm also going to, before I forget, take the chain and put that back on. Okay, just gonna roll forward, and the chain is on. Spectacular. So the caliper gets mounted here and here. So we're going to line this up. We're going to slip the disc between these two pads. So I'm just gonna hold those open. There we go. Caliper bolts. We've got this one that goes here. And this one, which will go in here. Rear brake caliper mounting bolts at 40 Newton meters. Time for the larger torque wrench. Let's go ahead, torque these down. One, two, good. Next up, we have to adjust the chain slack. So I'm going to need my little 8mm ratcheting wrench. And we're going to be going counterclockwise this time to take up the spring tension. So I'm going to have to keep track of how much I torque this each time, starting from very bottom. So from the very bottom, 1, 2, so now let's check. Checking by feel, it feels good, top and bottom, and it looks good. Looks like it's spinning smoothly. From behind, I don't see any obvious bends. And then, let's take that same socket. We're going to do that measurement again. So pulling it all the way down as low as it'll go. Goes right there. Pushing it up. It just barely doesn't cover it. So my specs for the chain are right about where they should be. So, got the chain on. We have the caliper as well as the brake pads in place and all torqued down. All that is left now is to torque down this main setting. So this is a 24mm socket actually for the right hand side of the back. I did manage to find it. Took me a while, but I did get it. Now I am going to put that 24 onto my torque wrench and get the torque settings down for the rear axle. And the rear axle should be torqued down at 85 Newton meters. So let's go ahead and grab our torque wrench. I'm going to leave my breaker bar on this side just to make sure that that nut does not spin. And we're going to go ahead and tighten this down. Okay, there we go. And that is the rear axle reattached. Should be the last thing I need this large torque wrench for. Now that it's very important that it's this stage, you take a step back, admire your work, have a drink, and just take a second to breathe, because that was a lot of stuff we just did. Alright, no rest for the weary. Next up, I don't know if you noticed, but earlier this little bolt that holds in this little retaining clip for the brake hose goes right here. And this was just held in with a little teeny tiny 8mm headed bolt. So we're just going to go ahead and tighten that up. There we go. And the brake hose is now locked into place. All of these bolts were torqued down appropriately. We've got the axle torqued down. We have the chain tensioned appropriately. The caliper is in place. Also, before I continue, now that this is done and all cleaned up, I'm going to blast this with some brake cleaner. And then give the disc a good spin with a rag. Just to make sure that nothing got in that shouldn't have. And I had forgotten to be recording at that moment, but the rear brake reservoir is behind this panel. I had pulled it off to double check my levels, but the levels were exactly where they were supposed to be, so I'm just good like that. Now, the final step, we've got all of this reassembled. All that is remaining is the chain guard, and then we can also put on our exhaust, tighten up the brackets, and then we should be good to go and bed in the brakes. And in case you forgot, we are using our T30 bit to put these Torx bits in for our chain guard. Which, before I put it on, let's go ahead and give this a good scrub. Get all that grease and crud off of there. So off to the side, I did just spray this down with some brake cleaner to try to get some of the grime and crud off of there. Not super necessary. This is just part of the bike that has a tough life. So it is what it is. It's going to get just as terribly greasy as it was before, but I feel better knowing that I did give it a little bit of love before putting it back on. I'm not gonna be able to get a torque wrench in there at all, so I'm just gonna do that about that tight. That's as good as that's gonna get. That's not moving anyways, so that's not going anywhere. Let's tighten this one down at least. Oh yeah, that is solid. Perfect. And since we are here, let's go ahead and take a look at what might have happened to this exhaust, because this here, it looks like there is a hole. That's not supposed to be there, I don't believe. Now, we've got this piece that'll go up back here. Alright. I believe that is in. Let's see if my passenger foot peg will go in as it should. That took way too long to position in place. Oh my god, that should not have been nearly as hard as it was. Okay. Ooh, ooh, that ain't good. I gotta position this in place too. Okay, we've got our other exhaust here. Oh, if I'm not mistaken, this piece, the rubberized bit, also stayed in, but I'm gonna slip it the rest of the way out just so I can position it a little bit easier. Okay, so that's gonna go right in here. Okay, now, we will position this going right up here. So starting on that, so I have a bit of support, slip it forward, and now Slip this up. Move this up. There we go. Get the foot peg. So that way I can kind of slip everything together. Grab my 12mm again. Before that's super tight. Grab my hex. 6mm tightening. Okay. That's it. Rear brakes are done. Let's go ahead, step on the brake pedal a couple times. Make sure it firms up. Perfect, and we're done. So all that's left at this stage, what I would do if it wasn't dark out and I was tired, dirty, drinking, is I would hop on the bike, take off down the road, get it up to speed, and just like apply the brakes nice and gradually but firmly several times until eventually the brakes bed into the rotor, kind of like mate with them and all that. But I'm tired, I'm filthy, and that is gonna be it for today. Another day I'll do the front pads, but those are just gonna be the pads only. It'll be much less intensive job than this. This job required removing the rear wheel and a bunch of other stuff. But at any rate, thank you very much for watching. I hope this video helped some of you out. I wasn't able to find like a full video going over that whole process, so hopefully some of you out there found this helpful. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. Have any questions, comments, concerns, just drop it in the comment. I'll get it eventually. And that's it for me. Have a good one.